And there we go. Hey, we're up. We're live. Greetings, guys, gals, and non-binary pals. I'm Joe Fulgham. Welcome to Viral Transmissions, episode number 18, which we are entitling The Perilous Age. It just came up as we were talking before the show, because that's the age we live in. Joining me, as usual, is Dr. Rob Tarswell. He's over there. Viral Transmissions is supported in part by the BC Humanist Association. You can learn more about those great people at bchumanist.ca. They do a lot of great work. So we got a kind of another COVID news roundup. We're going to start off, though, with taking a look at the numbers for this week, and we're going to try something a little new. I'm going to try to share. There we go. Let's look at United States before I swap
Not
over
just the
here.
usual news roundup, folks. There's an interesting
Some weird stuff going on.
going down.
Okay, so we've got. I'll keep both your faces up, your face and the graph. I've got the graph up. Here's our daily change in new cases in the United States, as provided by Google with a really good little interface here. So here's the thing I want to point out. We took a look at this before the show and talked about a few things that we wanted to talk about. You can see here at starting mid-March, 16th of March, we had a sudden uptick in new cases. So from here to about beginning of April. So a couple of weeks of, oh no. And then things stayed relatively the same. We've got this sawtooth here, Rob. Do you want to explain why this keeps going dramatically up and down and up and down and up and down on, gosh,
So basically, cases
every
aren't reported
week?
every 7 days. Yeah, so cases don't get reported on Saturdays and Sundays, and they get added into the Monday numbers. And so you see a big peak on Monday, and then it slides down, and then that trough represents Saturday, Sunday, and then boop. So you're going to get this sawtooth, and it's a 7-day sawtooth, but the average is really the sort of, you can draw a straight line right through the center of that sawtooth and get a sense of what's going on.
Right. So we get, again, beginning of April, we get that peak of 33,000. And from there, it looks like things tend to go relatively flat with a little bit of a downward trajectory. Right up until we hit mid-June. Actually, a little bit before that, but mid-June, I like to pick as the point where everything goes to hell.
Which, incidentally, was 3 weeks after Memorial Day weekend in the U.S., which is when a lot of states started having their reopenings.
Right. So, again, this information that we're looking at lags behind the actual reality because it takes a while before we learn who's infected. So this means this 15th of June means they were infected back at the beginning. Yeah, it's bad news. And from here, it just goes up, like just up and up and up and up. And nothing has been done in America, it seems, that will influence this line. Here's the big problem. And we switch this over to deaths. And again, this doesn't perfectly line up, which kind of bothers me. So we've got this one. We got the big uptick started 17th of March and went till basically mid-March to beginning of April, and now we'll go to, so here's mid-March for deaths, and then this will be the beginning of April. There's mid-April, and we've got just a huge spike in deaths right here. Again, the sawtooth going on from the reporting time versus weekends and stuff like that. Till we peak in May. 2,701 deaths. And from there it goes down. But then here's this mid-June thing, right, where we saw the uptick.
Confirmed cases are starting to take off.
Right there.
Yep.
And then a couple of weeks later, bam.
An
uptick.
Yeah.
An uptick, right? So these are all, this one peaks at the 670. This is 700, 694, right? There's a 926. So it was going down, and then it goes up. And if we want to know the direction that this is going to go up, you can look at it compared to this direction, which is really not good. Really not good.
No.
That the future for America right now is going to be, they're going to peak 3,000 easily, and again, nothing they've done has lowered that line. So the actual line is going to keep going up, and then the new cases line is going to keep going up, because again, that's lagging behind reality. And then the death line is just
lag
going to
another 3 weeks behind.
another
confirmed
3 weeks
cases.
behind that. So basically, we are through this looking glass of this data, being able to see. This is where the perilous age came from. Just thousands and thousands of daily deaths in America are coming.
Right. Yeah, right now, I think, what do we look on the Financial Times tracker? 46% of daily deaths are happening in Latin America. The bulk of those are in Brazil, which is over 2,000 deaths daily. It is not at all implausible that America could end up there. Because essentially, you have a national problem that's being addressed with a number of local solutions of varying quality, but no national strategy.
Yeah.
There hasn't been a national strategy in some time.
A refusal to have a national strategy. Yeah.
Right. Yeah, you could say that.
An abandoning of their responsibility.
Yeah.
Literally your job when you lead a country. Literally your job.
It's somewhere on the to-do list, is prevent unnecessary death
Yeah.
in your populace.
So what else?
It's in the mandate.
What else do you want to take a look at here, Rob? While we're here, should we take a look at Canada and see how we're doing?
Sure.
Now this is so. Here's new cases. We had a big flare up starting end of March.
Same as everyone else. Mid-March is when we started to impose public health measures.
It's one really bad day on the 3rd of May. But then down, and again, I don't like this. We've got some, looks like a slight uptick.
A suggestion there, yeah, for sure, of an upward slope. Not surprising entirely, because that's around the time when we started to reopen in our provinces.
I would like to live in a country with zero. I would like to live in a country like New Zealand, where we closed up enough so that we tracked down literally everybody who had it, and then we all went, now we're all fine, let's go outside again. And then we could do that. I don't understand this. Alan Newell, friend of ours, he's been a guest on Caustic Soda a few times. He posted a thing on Facebook that I really liked, which is like, look, if you're in a submarine and you sink really, really deep and then you blow your emergency ballast, you don't get near the surface and then go, okay, time to open up the hatch on the top.
Right, yeah. You get all the way to the top.
You get all the way to the top, and then you go, okay, now it's safe to open the hatch.
Yeah.
And that is how I feel about coronavirus. I don't. We already live with way too many random risks, right? As we saw with the passing of one of the Mythbusters, Grant Imahara, just brain aneurysm.
Mm-hmm.
Just 49 years old, just brain went click, and he's done. We live with all of that. I don't want to live with a virus that we can all just get rid of.
And as I think, looking back at the Caustic Soda days, we talked about brain aneurysm one time, and I think I mentioned that about 1 in 10 of us is walking around with one of those in your, like some kind of vascular anomaly. Mm-hmm. They're not all dangerous. Most of them, the vast majority of them, are benign. It's really hard to know, though, just from imaging, which ones are the bad ones.
Oh.
So, yeah, there's no way to tell with a CT or an MRI which one's going to blow. The vast majority don't. You will die with your vascular malformation and not know you had it, right? So this is from autopsy studies that we know that about 10% of people have these vascular malformations. So is yours the bomb? Who knows? 10% chance you got one, though.
I'm okay with that.
Think about that.
I'm not okay with that.
On your way to Crystal Mall. So yeah,
I don't know.
As you say, there's lots of
as far as deaths go.
Risk.
As far as deaths go, Rob.
Yeah.
Click, done.
It ain't bad. It ain't bad. You can certainly do far worse. It is not. It is not having a body riddled with slow-growing metastatic disease.
Yeah. God, now I'm bummed out. All right, what else do you want to take? So we got Canada here with the slight upticks, right, with infections. I think. Can we go to
our Canadian deaths looking?
We can't do... Yeah, let's take a look at deaths. So the deaths, meanwhile, it looks like we got pretty low here, end of June, and again another slight uptick, but they're going down here. But we remember these delays, so let's take a look at this again. So really, what I'm seeing is an uptick. Looks like it started around end of June. So deaths were... So we might be in for a bit of an uptick in deaths in Canada in the next few weeks, I think. Because we had
so far,
looks like that slight uptick a couple of weeks ago.
Steady and controlled so far.
Like right here, whatever this is. Yeah, let's do it. Let's get it down.
Down, down, down. And remember, folks, the 3 things, right? Distancing, masks, hand hygiene.
Yeah.
Which brings us to the next story.
Yeah, let's do that next story. I know exactly what you're talking about.
We're going to save...
Whoops.
We had the soup, now the salad. You're going to love it.
Where is my... Okay. We have some news out of Switzerland where at a... here we go. After a coronavirus outbreak where only those wearing plastic visors were infected, the Swiss government has said plastic shields are an inadequate protection and should only be worn in combination with a face mask. The general story is that there was... a recent outbreak among staff at a restaurant, and all the staff members were wearing plastic visors. So you have the band and then the face shield, but they were not wearing cloth masks over their faces underneath that, and they all got infected. Whereas I believe there were other employees that wore masks that did not get infected.
Interesting. So this kind of this matches nicely with our 3 public health maneuvers, and basically 3 ways of getting infected. So one way are the heavy ballistic drops that kind of go in ballistic arcs and hit the ground.
Right.
Then there's the second kind of droplets, which are small enough that they can be carried buoyantly on air currents, and they can kind of swirl around in eddies. So those are probably the ones swirling around masks or visors and underneath visors. And those ones are partially blocked by masks. And then the third method of getting infected is contamination on surfaces. So when those ballistic drops land on a table, a keyboard, a doorknob, you touch it, rub your eyes, boom. So the 3 methods of dealing with that, right? The social distancing takes care of ballistic drops. Masks takes care of the buoyant drops or partially aerosolized drops. And then hand washing takes care of contaminated surfaces, or what we call fomite spread. So you do the 3 things to prevent the 3 methods of transmission, as some folks, it sounds like, learn the hard way in Switzerland.
The way I like to imagine it is, and there's been a few memes that have gone around this, is your chilly breath, like your breath in a chilly atmosphere, and you see that where you can see the cloudy breath. And I can imagine standing in front of somebody who's wearing a face shield, and I go, and I breathe out my chilly breath. It's still going to kind of roll underneath that face shield. It's going to just roll under and get into your face, and you're just going to breathe in a nice big breath full of that chilly breath. And that chilly breath, not that I eat chili, it's cold breath, that breath potentially has coronavirus in it, or SARS-CoV-2, I guess technically is what it has, which causes coronavirus.
Causes COVID-19.
Or causes COVID-19, yeah. So, yeah, I'm going to keep where I got my mask still. I show it as much as I can. My little Mandalorian mask.
My 6 masks.
It's still a little...
I don't wear them all at once anymore.
No, I know. You wouldn't want to do that. That would not affect your oxygen level, as we discovered.
Well, it would improve it, perhaps.
It did seem that way, didn't it?
I'm good with a 98.
It did seem that way.
I don't need to walk around with a constant near sense of suffocation just to go from a 98 to a 99. Yeah, I'm good with 98.
That's right. It made you breathe deeper, and that's why you were more oxygenated.
Sure, something like that. Yeah.
It's totally it. Rob, you want to talk about the end times?
The end times. We live in a perilous age. Now, one thing that's really interesting is that this is a sort of a uniquely North American phenomenon, primarily an American phenomenon. especially within evangelical Christianity, which is the idea that the world ends in a period of tribulation that lasts 7 years. It's preceded by the rapture, so all the Christians get whisked out, and I guess they get front row seats from the heavenly Colosseum, while the rest of us down here just get absolutely steamrolled in 7 years of tribulation. There's like the Antichrist, the false prophet, a lot of bad stuff going on, war, disease, all the bad things. And so, of course, since there's a certain segment of American Christianity in particular that is very apocalyptic, they're always on the watch for signs of the end times. Is this a sign that Christ is coming? And they interpret certain things that Christ said, and certain things that some of the apostles or the writers of the epistles of the New Testament said, particularly the Revelation of St. John, which is the last book of the Bible. And
it's like a Neil Stevenson ending too. It's the weakest part.
It's certainly the most symbolic part, and you kind of scratching your head going, the what's going on here? And so tonight, for the first time on viral transmissions, it's Bible time. So let's.
Do you want me to give a brief example of what one of these pastors is saying? I can jump to a bit in this guy's rant that you sent me the video.
Yeah.
Do you want me to do that? I'm gonna
tease us with some of what's actually kind of going on out there.
Hold on, I haven't actually picked a time code, but it shouldn't take too much for me to be able to pick the right time. Let me get that going. Turn on screen share. Hold on. Again, we're doing live video here, folks. All right, good. So I don't know. This
wondered how long it would take the Antichrist to come to power.
Very popular,
Now,
well-known.
to crush the hope of the American
So let's hold on.
incorrectly, meaning
Pretty quiet,
that if a person did not have CV-19, they were told to record it as a death by coronavirus. Why? Because it ran the numbers
turn that up?
and qualified them for more
no,
federal
this
aid.
is it.
That
I think
message
you
was
might have
knocked off
me
of television in a hurry.
quieted.
Why?
It should
Because
be-
they want to make the crisis
Because I can hear you normal
to crush
volume, but
the
I can't. I
hope
can
of
hardly
the
hear
American
Hagee at
people
all.
through fear to
so it
control
has its
you,
own.
to
Hold
extend
on, I'll
this
pause it.
crisis all the way to the no.
It has its own volume setting for you, so you can.
Oh,
Right.
So the folks listening can hear it fine.
Yeah, it should be coming through pretty good. I've got.
Everyone's saying they can hear it fine.
Yep.
Okay, great. All right.
So you should be able to right-click it and set the volume.
Let's listen to.
Let me jump into a little earlier. How about one minute in? A minute and a half. Hold on.
Not considered essential. They also rule that you can keep Planned Parenthood, keep killing babies. We'll even give you $500 million to keep doing that, which is exactly
$100
what
million
they
to kill
did.
babies.
But shut down the church that teaches 6 things God hates, and one of them is those who shed innocent blood. Our government released 1/3 of the criminals in America's prisons. Some of them were murderers and rapists. Some of them are out on the street now. And they put a salon owner in Dallas, Texas, a lady in jail because she needed to go to work to feed her children. Fortunately, we live in Texas. Our governor, Greg Abbott, and the salon owner got the salon owner released immediately, and our lieutenant governor, Dan Patrick, offered to pay her $7,000 fine and serve her jail sentence. That's the kind of leadership we have in Texas, and that's why we live here.
Oh, the separation of church and state is bullshit in America.
The coronavirus pandemic.
Like that was this ad for your local Republican, paid for by all of you leaving money in this tray. Like,
now he was just about to talk about the coronavirus.
all right,
I think
It took the world's greatest economy, and in a matter of days, 40 million people were looking for work. It's the worst since the Great Depression. As Americans, we have discovered that our political system is indeed saturated with tin-horn, egotistical, petty dictators who are ready and willing to trample your constitutional freedoms away from you just that fast. Listen, if we do not use our freedom to defend our freedom, we will lose our freedom.
Oh, I'm pausing on the masks. I'm I'm at this church, but I'm wearing a fucking mask.
They're the three smartest people in the congregation.
Yeah.
For sure. So, one of the principal texts used to talk about the end times and what can we expect is Matthew 24. And before this, Jesus talks about a lot of kind of bad things that are going to happen. Well, he pronounces a lot of woe to you to the Pharisees, and then at the end, because this is a public sermon, right? He's giving a public sermon about the end of the age, and he says at the end, "Verily I say unto you, all these things shall come upon this generation." And then a couple verses later, Matthew chapter 24 starts. And this is the gospel according to Matthew. I go, let's keep it in frame. Let's keep the good book in frame.
Yes.
And Jesus went out and departed from the temple, and his disciples came to him for to show him the buildings of the temple. And Jesus said to them, "See ye not all these things? Verily I say unto you, there shall not be left here one stone upon another that shall not be thrown down." So Jesus is predicting the destruction of the Jerusalem temple. "And as he sat upon the Mount of Olives, the disciples came unto him privately, saying, Tell us, when shall these things be, and what shall be the sign of thy coming and of the end of the world?" So one of the good things about being a disciple is you get the backstage pass. So
Right.
Jesus gives the big sermon to everybody talking about the end of the age, and the disciples are like, really, when's this going to happen? And Jesus answered and said unto them, Take heed that no man deceive you. For many shall come in my name, saying, I am Christ, and shall deceive many. And ye shall hear of wars and rumors of wars. See that ye be not troubled. For all these things must come to pass. But the end is not yet. For nation shall rise against nation, and kingdom against kingdom, and there shall be famines and pestilences and earthquakes in diverse places. All these are the beginning of sorrows. So there's kind of the four things there, right? So the beginning of sorrows. It's war, so nation rises against nation, famine, pestilence, and earthquake. So from the apocalyptic perspective, there's always, and you can find this on the internet, right? Anytime there's something that involves war, famine, pestilence, which is like King James English for disease, or earthquake, it attracts eyeballs. It attracts attention from apocalyptically oriented Christians who are thinking, okay, is this the start of the end times? Is this the starting gun? Did it just go off? Is the stopwatch running? Is the rapture coming? Tribulation, end of the age, 1,000-year reign of Christ, boom, final judgment. And as you can imagine, it didn't take long for a lot of apocalyptic preachers, and John Hagee is certainly in that camp, to get a look at the coronavirus and COVID-19 and try to wrap it into end times prophecy, end times kinds of thinking. And this happens in a number of ways. So at least as far as I can tell so far, the broad consensus is no, this is not the start of the tribulation. They emphasize that because the tribulation doesn't start until the rapture. And, we're still around and we're the true believers. So this can't be the tribulation. They don't think about the other possibility. But indeed, the Bible does say these are the beginning of sorrows. This is just kind of the soup and salad. to use that metaphor, to overuse the metaphor.
Yeah, yeah.
This isn't the main course. And unfortunately, war, earthquake, famine, and disease are very, very non-specific. So it's pretty hard to kind of get something specific out of that. But there was something specific that Jesus did refer to just a few verses earlier when he was going to the garden with his disciples, and he just kind of looks at the temple and says, hey, do you see this? Not one stone is going to be left on top of another. It's all going to get torn down. Now, what's interesting is the ministry of Jesus was around 30 AD to 33 AD. The destruction of the Jerusalem temple was 70 AD. And
wow, what a prediction.
One way of interpreting this, since we don't actually have any manuscripts of the Gospel of Matthew or any of the Gospels until mid to late 2nd century, is an uncharitable view would be, perhaps these were written after the destruction of the temple, and perhaps this is not a prediction but a postdiction. But at the very least, even if that is written down as a prediction, Jesus ended his big public sermon about all the bad things that are going to happen before he's walking with his disciples to the garden, casually mentions, hey, look at that, this is all going to get torn down. Verily I say to you, this generation shall not pass before all this is fulfilled.
Yeah.
So the very straightforward interpretation would be Jesus is talking to his disciples saying, you people, this generation, the people alive right now, are going to see this. And then just imagine being a Christian around AD 70, 40 years after. Wow, the temple's been torn down. There's war, there's pestilence, there's famine, there's earthquake, right? Things that are just always happening all the time, all over the world,
That's right.
especially in the ancient world.
Yeah.
Food scarcity is a serious problem if you are someone who isn't in Rome. In the ancient, if you're on the periphery of the Roman Empire, food scarcity is a problem. Disease is a daily problem. Earthquakes, that's kind of happening everywhere. War is very much a problem. War is the thing that you hope that you and your sons aren't conscripted to fight in, right? War is just part of daily reality at that time in that place. And so one way of looking at this is, even if this is a prediction, it happened. It happened. The temple's been torn down. But there's this kind of, we can get in on a wild tangent, but there's a kind of the rise of this fascinating industry of apocalypticism within American evangelical Christianity that starts in the middle of the 19th century and really comes to a head in around 73 when Hal Lindsey publishes The Late Great Planet Earth.
Right.
But that is what really woke people up to end times kinds of theology, end times thinking, the rapture.
Yeah.
And then there's just this kind of constant cottage industry of people trying to figure out when the end times are going to be, because of course this generation shall not pass away. Well, that couldn't possibly, because the end times hasn't happened yet. So that couldn't possibly have referred to that generation. This can't be a failed prophecy. This is an unfulfilled prophecy. So who is this generation? And a lot of modern day apocalyptic theologians anchor it to the creation of the state of Israel in 1948. And depending on how long a generation is, well, we're running out of time, right? It's been 72 years since Israel was created. And I can remember when I was like really, really into evangelical Christianity as a teenager, we all had, don't judge me, we all had hobbies, okay? And I can remember being really excited by a book that came out in 1988 called 88 Reasons Why Christ Must Return in 1988. I'll leave it as an exercise to the audience to determine
and 14
whether that
reasons
happened.
why to buy this book. Oh my God.
Yeah.
Those are 88? Really?
88, because in the mid 80s, thinking a generation was the amount of was based on certain rabbinical traditions, which suggested a generation is 40 years. Well, now that doesn't work anymore. So now we have to use other definitions of generation, like ones that come from the Psalms. The time of a man is 70 or 40. So between 70 and 80 years. Here we are between 70 and 80 years. So there's a lot of excitement about the year 2020, the year 2021. And the tribulation starting. The gun starts in 2021, and by 2028, that's 80 years. So that's the completion of a generation since the creation of the state of Israel, 80 years. And since Christ said, "Verily, I say unto you, all these things must come to pass. This generation shall not pass away." So that's kind of the current, what people are anchoring to these days. And there's just some wild stuff because Pope Francis was elevated to the papacy in 2013, and evangelicals do not like Catholicism. They do not like the Pope. They think he has a major role to play on Satan's side in end times.
Okay.
Yeah. And the Freemasons tie into this, and
so how
it's
does
all
this
over YouTube. Just find it.
So
how does
now
this relate to COVID?
So now they've jumped onto COVID. So now we've got these charlatans.
So COVID is the pestilence.
Right.
So we've got the rise of pestilence, right? So this is one of the big four signs.
Yeah.
Because war is always happening.
Yeah.
Famine's always happening somewhere. Earthquakes are always happening. But we don't always have major pandemics. Now, I would like to point out that there wasn't a whole lot of buzz about Ebola in West Africa, because that's a disease that affected Africa. So it didn't hit the American radar the way coronavirus has, which is very much an American pandemic. At least at right now, and the way it's accelerating and ramping up, right? So there were already people really, really excited by 2021, and you see a lot of YouTube videos and let's call it alternate theology from 2018, 2019, looking at signs and the stars, and there was a full eclipse of the moon that hit the U.S. in 2017. There's another one hitting in 2021, and they form the shape of an X, and it's a sign of judgment. I am not kidding. This is like serious free association going on. And that all ties in the length of a generation, and so the tribulation has to end in 2028, and God often pronounces his judgments in the form of eclipses. So there's an eclipse in 2021, and rapture happened sometime before that. And so here we are in early 2020, and along comes the coronavirus. And if you're already very, very excited because of your astrological chart, then when this comes along, that just absolutely feeds into this narrative,
right,
like logs into a sawmill. It is just too perfect.
Right. So how many of these mega pastors do you think? So do you think this guy actually believes this stuff, or is he simply, or is it? I mean, I admit it could. It doesn't have to be one or the other. He could kind of believe it and also kind of know he's a charlatan.
Luckily, we don't have to kind of examine the private contents of his mind and see whether or not he believes it.
Yeah.
Which is a burden I'm happy to be free of. What worries me is the public health angle.
Mm-hmm.
If somebody sees the coronavirus as just kind of a chess piece in this huge narrative, how is that going to affect their interaction with, well, this is a crisis here and now. We need to intervene now.
Yeah.
We need to do things now.
Yeah.
So one video I watched, which was really interesting, there's a guy who was laying out his end times timeline, and he was saying, yeah, the company I work for, my boss said, if we don't take the vaccine when it comes out, we can't meet with clients and we can't come back. So it's going to be mandatory in my workplace for us to get the vaccine. And then he says, I'm not saying this is the mark of the beast, because of course part of end times prophecy is you've got to take a mark, either on your forehead or in your wrist, in order to conduct commerce under the one world government.
Right.
He said, I'm not saying this is the mark of the beast, but it's preparation for the mark of the beast. If you're willing to take this vaccine just because you're told to take it, that softens you up for taking the mark during the tribulation. So there's this kind of end times theological story being told about why we should be scared of this vaccine. And this is from a guy who believes the coronavirus is real. There are other end times Christians who think that this whole thing is what they're calling a plandemic, not a pandemic. Get that? And the plandemic comes from Satan and the Illuminati and the Freemasons and the Catholic Church. Those are always the bad guys.
Okay.
To prepare the groundwork for the arrival of the one world government and the end times. So whether the coronavirus, what's fascinating is nobody particularly cares whether the virus is real or not. This is the thing that fascinates me when I watch these videos. They don't care if it's real or if it's a problem right now that we need to do things about as just a community. It's a really neat chess piece on my board, on my end times battleground, and look at the way it's moving around, and this all lines up and that lines up. And I think this is a pretty serious problem if it's at a remove from you. It's not a thing where you're like, hey, gosh, maybe we need to look at when we reopen businesses and how do we do that safely, and we should be serious about these public health maneuvers. All that kind of practical thinking takes a back seat.
Yeah.
Because there's a much bigger story going on outside of the frame, Joe. And we got to get on top of that story.
I mean, that's not wrong. But, yeah, can we please find small churches who are talking about their worshipers' responsibility to protect those around them and how that means wearing a mask. And you should check in on your friends to see how they're doing in these troubling times. Like, I need to see a good church. Because I know they exist. You and I are both pretty stringent atheists, but I know that there are good churches out there who are saying things like, times are tough and let's stick together and wear your mask and wash your hands. I'm sure those churches exist.
The virus is real and people are out of work and they're hungry, and we gotta help people out.
Yeah. I know that there are Christians who do that. I don't know if we brought it up on the show, but I certainly tweeted about. There are Sikh doctors in Canada who have shaved their beards, so that they can wear proper protective equipment, which is that's a thing that you.
Oh yeah, well, I mean, a couple of the masks that Marilee and I have were made by a friend of ours who, as far as I know, is very devout, but also very practical and very oriented to the virus here and now, and has been burning her sewing machine.
That's
making
the thing.
Masks and delivering them to the downtown east side. So there's not one theological response to the coronavirus.
Right.
There are better ones.
I don't want anybody to think that we're here as two atheists to poo-poo on, look at this religion. To me, so I was talking about this earlier, but I'll share it for the stream. To me, it's like there's religious and secular, and then there's good and evil, and it's like a Dungeons and Dragons like alignment chart where you can be secular good, or you can be secular evil, or you can be religious good, or you can be religious evil. And these people are religious evil. And I also think that, like, if you want to do a thing that's wrong, you're going to just look around with the tools you have to figure out reasons why you should. And so as much as we as secular atheists and stuff think that we're also rational about, look at these religious people using this religion to make themselves think this weird thing, which then leads them on to do other weird stuff. I'm like, yes, but atheists have skull measurers who think that measuring skull size means they're allowed to be racist. So and that's
you guys have John Hagee, we've got Quillette. It's
yeah. So I don't want anybody to think, as much as we're big atheists are, to me it's almost like it's personal now. I do think the world would be slightly better if more people were like didn't have faith, but at the same time I got way bigger problems to deal with, and it's barely
Right.
worth my time at all to change. As long as you're a good person, that's fine. That's all I care
If
about.
you were acro monk, my parents' church is exactly what you described. I think that was while I was talking, but
Do you know
also
who
says,
Acro Monk
close the
is,
church,
by the way,
video
Rob?
only masses.
Do you know who-
I don't, but I don't know if we want to dock. Do we want to dox Acro Monk? We
Acro,
don't.
can I tell everybody who you are? Can I tell Rob who you are? Because Rob knows you.
Well, if you tell me, you're telling everybody.
Acro. Well, I mean that's why I'm asking. Go ahead.
Okay.
Yeah, that's Dave Schneider
Oh, no kidding.
from high school. Yeah.
All right. Well, your parents' church used to be my church. It was the Catholic church chapel on the base.
Yeah, I went to the
Way
Protestant
back in
one.
way back in the mid '80s. Yeah,
That's
that's
when-
right. Yeah.
That was when I thought that's what religion was one of those two churches.
And they were both very similar. Why I think the Catholic chapel was it was on a bit of a hillside.
Yep. Yep.
Ours was slightly higher than yours.
Yeah. Yeah. Which I think the way the Protestants were, they were like, look at them being up higher. Like, Catholics. They're so fancy. They think it matters.
Yeah. Apostolic succession, baby.
But I think I think because it served the people on the base, I think it was just Protestant, which basically meant not Catholic, had bits of Anglicism to it as well. Like I think it was because it would have to, which meant that the services there still felt a little Catholic. Like when I look at it, like. Certainly, I don't remember anybody having the giant hat, but I think the robes were similar. He had the big
Sacraments. Oh yeah, the sacraments are similar.
Sacraments.
The liturgies are very similar because the two churches kind of basically were one and sort of kind of drifted apart, and it was formalized by Henry VIII. But I'm sure culturally the process had been well underway for generations before.
I learned this
Henry
is the
decided.
weirdest tangent ever, but I learned how to count to 100 in that church.
Kidding.
So I was very, very young at the time. Like this was not our teen years. Obviously, I was quite young. Because I went there, we moved away, and then we came back to Chilliwack. So it was early on. And I remember two girls sitting ahead of me during a service were whispering. And of course, there's two young girls ahead of you whispering, so you listen to them instead of what the guys
Way more
preaching
interesting. Yeah.
And one of them said, I learned how to count to 100 in school today. And her friend was like, no way, no you don't. And her friend did, I totally did. And then she counted to 100. And I just listened, and I went, so it's just 20, and then you do 1 to 10 again, and then 30, which is like 3, and then 1 to 10, and then 40, which is 4. That's easy. I'm going to tell my... And I went home and was like, Mom, I learned how to count to 100 in church today.
And I'm saved.
What'd you learn? What else did you learn? What'd you learn about God? I don't know.
God likes it when I count to 100?
I don't know. Be nice, I think.
Yeah.
I don't remember anything. Actually,
Except to those Catholics up on the hill.
My mom being from Newfoundland, which is kind of a stopping point for many Protestant Catholics, had a pretty big streak of anti-Catholicism to her. It's true. So she was being Protestant. So we're segueing. It's fine. Being Protestant, she was very big, and I had to choose my own path, right? And I remember my buddy JD, who his parents were Catholic. He was telling me about his confirmation, right? So he had to do all his study and stuff like that, and then he'd do his confirmation to be Catholic, and then he'd have a big party. And he was like talking about the party and like all the food, and he'd get presents and all this other stuff. And I was like, I want that. So I went to my mom and was like, yeah, I think I might be Catholic because I want to do this confirmation thing. And my mom went, oh no, Joe, when I told you to choose your way, that's not what I meant. Anything but Catholic.
I meant Sunday morning service or Saturday night service.
Yes, that's right. That's right. Yeah. Oh my God.
Good times.
Yeah.
So getting back on the COVID beat,
Yes.
Some pretty interesting developments over the past week. So another unfortunate nail in the coffin of retained immunity from wild exposure new British study. Antibodies fade after 3 weeks. And we're starting to hear more case reports of individuals now who convincingly seem like they've been reinfected with the coronavirus after a significant gap.
Yeah.
So it seems like, this virus it really hates us. Certainly I hate it. We hate it, and we should.
Yeah. Yeah.
But it seems as though the natural immunity that you get from the virus doesn't seem like it may not hang around forever. And that's a problem. So we need to find targets, and this is what the vaccines are looking for, targets and ways of stimulating antibodies that will rapidly reappear on exposure to the virus. I mean, the good news is that currently, at least in the New York Times virus tracker, we've now got 4 viruses in phase 3 studies, and those are the final phase studies before you can get approval for humans. The one that's still way out in front is the Oxford vaccine, and they're suggesting, we'll see, this is very close, they're suggesting that they may have the data they need by September, which is,
okay,
that'd be wild if that's true, because that's 6 weeks away. I mean, I hope that's right.
Wow.
I hope that's right, and I hope I've understood this properly, and I hope that is in fact true, because already they've got agreements with manufacturers to prepare up to 2 billion doses, billion with a B, and if it does pan out and it works, I would hope that they'd get more factories to just kind of crank out doses even faster than that. Let's go. Let's get this going.
Yeah,
because
please.
The whole world, it's either, you're either in part of the world that has stopped because of the coronavirus, or you're in a part of the world like America or Brazil where
you should have stopped.
Damn the virus, full speed ahead, and you stop anyway. You just stop with a whole lot more bodies in refrigerated trucks.
Yeah.
Schemiel, if the U.S. came up with a vaccine first, they'd charge a fortune for it. That might be true. We'll see. I hope not. I hope that there would be significant subsidization by the federal government and a rolled up newspaper to the nose of any manufacturer. So that's the news on the vaccine front, and possibly a 5th vaccine might be entering phase 3 trials on the 27th of July. That, in fact, might be the U.S. vaccine.
Okay.
So we'll see. Anthony Fauci seems pretty excited about some of the data on that vaccine. Let me just pull up the vaccine tracker. This is where you go for your latest and greatest information, or this is sort of where I go. Yeah, so 11 vaccines in phase 2, 4 in phase 3. I'll put the link in the chat. And there it is, New York Times vaccine tracker, with a whole bunch of Facebook spam after the question mark. Speaking of Anthony Fauci, a really weird thing happened in the past week. It seemed like the White House went on direct attack against Anthony Fauci, and
the CDC.
He didn't. Well, the CDC, even worse. What happened there? But with Fauci, and he was still on talk shows, and I think at one point, he was talking. I think it was Jon Stewart he was talking with, and Jon Stewart said, "So the White House has just kind of gone directly after your credibility," and Fauci, in his kind of Faucian way, said, "Yeah, and I think that was very unwise." And he didn't back down at all. Like, he didn't counterstrike, but he blocked. And he said, "Yeah, I think that was really unwise. I think that backfired on them in a serious way."
History,
I think he's absolutely right.
History will prove him right. It doesn't matter what short-term gains Donald Trump and the Republicans think that they're going to get. When those COVID deaths hit over 4,000 a day, which they're gonna, right? So
they certainly could. It is now a live possibility. It is certainly a live possibility.
It is the confidence of a man that knows the entire world is watching and history will come down on his side. So it is.
And then, interestingly enough, unprovoked, Francis Collins, who's the head of the National Institute of Institutes of Health, right, which is the big health bureaucracy under which all the other major U.S. health bureaucracies sit. So Fauci, in a sense, he answers to Collins, and Collins has basically come out online and said if he was ordered to fire Anthony Fauci, he would not carry out that order because Fauci is the smartest and the wisest man we know, and absolutely the person we need in this position right now.
Yeah.
So he's basically said, I ain't going to do the dirty work.
Yeah. You're going to fire me too?
And it's fascinating to hear these like just staunchly apolitical bureaucrats who just really want to practice medicine in the public interest and have served under all sorts of administrations on both sides of the aisle, saying these just straight up political statements, couched in the careful, learned language that you only get after 30 to 35 years serving in a major bureaucracy in a polarized political environment, but still sending really, really clear signals.
Yeah.
So I'm quite fascinated by that. Now, you mentioning the CDC, did you have a story there? Because that's another interesting piece as well.
So I have the New York Times one, which sadly they keep wanting me to log in. But the general idea is Trump administration strips the CDC of the access to COVID data. The
hospitalization data specifically.
Yeah. The word is they will still have access to that data, but right now it's supposed to be going through this. Like basically, you report the data to the CDC, and then they dispense it to everybody else. But they've still got apparently a week behind, and so the Trump administration is claiming that by them taking the information in, they're going to get access to it faster.
Yeah, I mean, there's a bit of backstory here, right? So initially, all the data was gone. There was a huge outcry, and part of it came back only until July the 14th. But after that, the hospital tracking data is gone.
Okay.
And a no-bid contract to a private company for $10 million was given to take care of that data. So let's not leave it in the hands of the federal bureaucracy that had already been managing it extremely well. Let's give it to this private company. I'm not sure what private company it is, and I'm not sure what the size of the donation to the Republican Party was. But one does wonder whether there was some quid pro quo there.
When this is all over and America regains its senses, they are going to need special squads of law enforcement officers whose job it is to track down every single person who sold out America to corporate interests and make them pay somehow.
We're seeing in Portland, there certainly are no shortage of special squads.
Yeah, we need the good.
Beating the crap out of protesters.
We need the good guy version of those squads, right? The ones that track down these white collar criminals, who track down these corrupt politicians who get their shit done, literally sell your country off to their rich buddies. They've already done it with the prison population, which is now mostly privatized in America or in most of America. Healthcare is now in the hands, has been for a long time in America, of corporate interests, and they're just selling off every single thing that they can to all of their rich buddies. And then when they don't get voted in anymore, they join the boards of those companies and just live comfortably on the grift that they sent them. Thank you. I will now live out the rest of my life taking my reward for my work as a politician, serving you, giant, wealthy, evil company. And we need people who track them down. I want, even if they don't exist in reality, I want an action movie about these people who, not a Batman who beats up mentally ill homeless people in alleys, but I want a superhero who tracks down these rich fucks who make the world way worse than any mugger ever would. That's what I want.
You might like the Green Arrow. I know you're a Marvel guy, but that's kind of the Green Arrow's thing.
Yeah. I sure did like left-wing Green Arrow back in the day. That's true. I don't know if Arrow in the TV show is that way. I don't think.
It starts out that way the first few seasons. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. But I think it just got canceled.
Yeah.
Bit of a tangent.
Yeah.
You have failed this city, and then he shoots you through the eye with an arrow.
My thing about Arrow is I did a few days of PA work on Arrow.
Very good.
So for those who don't know, PA is production assistant. It's kind of I always poo-poo it, though. They on set they were always careful to point out everybody here is super important. But PA is what you do when you start off, and a lot of it's just generally make work. Like you're the person. Sometimes you're just literally the person who stands around all day in case we need a person to go do something.
Wow.
My job on Arrow one day was, hey, yeah, so we're going to be filming this later tonight, but they're going to be doing stunt rehearsals. So we need you to literally stand by the stunt team as they do this thing outside of Rogers Arena and make sure nobody bugs them. That was it. Literally stand there with a little safety vest on. And if anybody came near to go, oh, sorry, no, we need space, sorry. And that was it. And nobody did, so I didn't have to do anything. And literally what happened was the guy, is it Stephen Amell, who plays Arrow, came up, and he was just like in his gym gear. And he walks up to the stunt guys and goes, hey guys, cool, how's it going? He starts strapping on this harness kind of thing. He's like, yeah, blah, 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 blah. All right, yeah, awesome, cool. All right, I'll see you. Thumbs up. And they go, whoop, and he goes 60 feet up in the air on this line. Like casual as nothing. Was just, blah, 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 yep, da, 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 zip 60 feet up. And then they practiced the stunt, which was him landing. He was like apparently coming to, he had like his arrow that would lower him on his line. And then he did kind of the superhero, not quite 3-point landing, but like a cool superhero landing. So he did like that 3 or 4 times. But like just how casual and cool and experienced he was with like literally being zipped up into the sky was so cool. Anyway, that's my Arrow story.
My Stephen Amell story is I was just walking along the seawall, and suddenly I'm in the middle of like cable and tents, but there was no production assistant guiding anybody around. So I figured it was a set, and I thought, okay, I guess it's not a big deal if I'm here. Otherwise, anyone who's in Vancouver has had the experience of walking near a set. Yeah. There's always somebody guiding you around where you can go and where you can't go. And I realized I probably had gotten away with something when I looked to my right, and there, like 5 feet away, is Stephen Amell eating a sandwich, and he's looking at me, and I'm looking at him, and he's looking at me like, what? And I just go. It was just so surreal. So that's it. That's my exposure to Arrow. So
nice.
So production assistants are important, and if Joe had been at work that day,
I'd have stopped you. Yeah,
you'd have stopped me, and I wouldn't have had that moment.
I have also done that work. Yeah, I've also done a day in an alley in Vancouver's Chinatown, literally just making sure nobody stole all the cables plugged into the generator that was there.
Please don't steal the cable and resell it.
And if somebody's sitting there, nobody will. So, like, literally, my job was to sit in an alley all day.
Be the guy sitting there. Yeah.
That was it. That's you need. But if you don't do that, somebody will. So there's a job for that, and that's production assistant. Hooray!
Now, interesting political/philosophical question in the comments from Marilee Chu: can America actually go back to the level of honesty/decency it had before? Not saying it was great before, but obviously it was better. Like, the president didn't used to do illegal shit and embarrassing stuff as often as Trump does. But now that Trump has pushed that boundary, will politics be able to regain any of the rules it used to have? I do not know.
As soon as a Democrat gets back in, the Republicans will insist that every single tiny little rule will be followed. Of course it will. Now, right? But I really do think
more about good faith.
Yeah,
good faith return to norms.
No. The only hope we have is that that coronavirus kills the GOP. That enough Republican voters die and see that the GOP is the reason. But I don't even have much faith in that. They've resisted.
Does not have faith in mass death.
I don't have faith in mass death convincing cultists.
Yeah.
Right? Mass death is where cults lead. So, I mean, we've already looked at one of the reasons why people are fine with this, because they're like, yeah, it's the end times, it's fine. But then when you get to, I mean, eventually, because we know it, there's going to have to be a peak, even if that peak is nearly 80% of America gets infected and there's like over 1 million or perhaps 3 million deaths. If we get to that peak and there's 1 million deaths, will that be enough to convince the cultists, the people who back Trump no matter what? I don't know, because... So let me talk about a Trumpist that I interacted with on the line. So I'm vocal enough on my social media that none of my immediate friends at all are at all supportive of Donald Trump. They would have left years ago before he even got elected. But I do have some friends who are fairly right wing, and live in America and actually kind of vote Republican. One of them, who I won't name, but if you know some of the groups I'm in, you might know who I'm talking about. Quite right wing, but also super compassionate person. So here's what he does. He's a big barbecue guy. He's from Philly, and he loves barbecue and like loves cookouts and stuff like that. He regularly organizes giant charity-funded and charity food donated from food company cookouts for veterans. He's big on supporting the troops and big on helping the vets. And he has a whole bunch of people who help him with that, of course, many of whom are very right-wing. And so this friend of mine, he's pretty good about the Trump thing. Like he's a little politic about it, but he will be like, "Really? Do you really think that what he's doing is good?" Like basically to his friends, "Come on now, this thing he's doing is bad." He does a lot, and his friends they'll present him with their hand waviness. But I went in and called one out because very recently we've had a thing on Trump that I can't understand how the right wing's okay with, which is that Putin has been putting bounties on U.S. soldiers. Right?
Yeah.
So he's been putting these bounties on U.S. soldiers.
Yeah.
And so I didn't like turn this into a how dare you attacking argument that you very often would see me do. I literally went, I know that you guys care about vets. I know you care about the people who give of their lives to join your military in your country. I also know that you lost your mind about Benghazi, where 4 Americans died. Putin still has bounties out on U.S. soldiers. He is literally paying mercenaries to kill American soldiers, and Donald Trump has not said a single thing about that. If Donald Trump has still not even protested Putin doing that by saying, "How dare you," by November, will you still vote for him? And the guy said, "Of course I will." And then called me stupid. So, and this is a guy who, with my friend, now this is not my friend doing this, he's not gonna, but his friend, who has firmly drank the Kool-Aid, but spends so much time and his wall is full of caring about the vets, right? You go look at it. Like, he is pretty right-wing and bad, but he absolutely, our soldiers and, all that other stuff, it's not a thing I totally believe in. But, like, even if that's a thing you believe in, Donald Trump is dishonoring those men actively right now. How can you defend that man? And it was just like, "You're stupid." And I was like, "Please answer my question."
And that's where it ended.
As a matter of fact, my friend deleted the entire post, so all the comments went away. And I don't... Hey, my big thing is, it's your wall. You get to decide what conversations happen on your wall. I might not be happy about it, because I really did feel that me going, "Will you vote for Donald Trump?" and him saying yes, needed to stick around. I really wish I had screenshotted it. But yeah, it's bad, is what I'm saying.
Elections matter. Elections have real consequences.
They really do. They really do. And I don't... I think with those voters, and I think with Putin very obviously influencing the election in a lot of other ways, including hacking, that's why we're seeing Donald Trump coming out against mail-in voting. Because you can't hack mail-in voting. You can't. There's a paper trail. If anybody protests, that seems irregular, you can then
Right.
demand a recounting of the actual paper ballots by another third party.
Right.
Yeah,
All you can do is find bogus reasons to refuse to count or accept the mail-in ballots.
which is a whole bunch of work, but happens, right? Yeah, for
Yeah.
sure.
Yeah. Yeah.
Uh,
So it's the top of the hour. Should we find good news?
should
Do
we
we
talk?
have any?
I like this tracker. I mean, the tracker is bad news, but it's also like it's useful to me. I think it's a thing that again you might be able to use to convince your friends not to do something. So I'll put the link in the thing here. This is really good. This is a COVID-19 event risk assessment planning tool. Right now, this only works for the United States of America. But what it does...
Can you pull it up on the screen and you can cover me if you want or whatever,
that.
or bring it in as a third window?
Yeah. I can do it.
Because it's kind of cool showing how it works.
Let me just get this right. Turn on screen share. Here we go. Which is good because I got to squirm in my seat a little. So I got to go to the bathroom. All right. So this is currently for a meeting of 100 people. And you can see, so the blue is, or the gray here is not good. That actually means missing data, so we don't know. What you're looking for that's good is actually the yellow. It goes up from there to orange up into the reds. And you can see that like in California, we've got an awful lot of reds here at 99%. That's really, really bad. A bunch of 95%. But you can lower this straight down to 10. It'll take a while to load up. And there are still places in Texas at a 99% risk level attending a meeting of 10 people.
So 99% chance of exposure to coronavirus in a group of 10.
Yeah.
So I guess what they're saying, I mean, in a sense, what they're saying is that every 10th person has it in this county.
I think it's less than that. Like it would have to be, I think, a few percent. Like I think 50% would do it with 10 people.
Okay.
Rob, I gotta step away. I'm gonna be right back.
Yeah. All right. So I don't have access to the controls, but you can use the tool, and it looks like Pharmacology has already tried the tool. Oh man, my school is reopening in a few weeks and I'm in a red zone. Live classes, I take it. It seems like there's a big push for a lot of universities, not just in America, but in a lot of places to kind of come back with live classes. And I don't understand this fetish to feed young adults into the buzzsaw, but it's definitely a problem that we're seeing. I hope wiser heads prevail. I'm not sure. It's certainly not happening at all universities, but there's definitely a big push. There seems to be a lot more willingness to accept online learning, and I can certainly understand the dilemma that parents face who, on the one hand, absolutely don't want to expose their kids to coronavirus, but on the other hand, need to work. I mean, in Canada, there's less pressure because we have stimulus payments directly from the government. But I have a lot of empathy for folks in places like the US where benefits are a lot more tenuous. And so it really is, do I risk the virus or am I stuck unable to feed my family?
Mm-hmm. I'm back.
So we have a pharmacology student in Texas who noticed that my school's reopening in a few weeks and I'm in a red zone. So, yeah, wear a mask. If you, hopefully, if you are in a school of pharmacy, they'll be a little more swept up about public health measures. Man, I would really hope that a school of pharmacy would go to online learning. It's just like a crime against health science to not. But yeah, our benefits were one stimulus check that a ton of people never got, says Ischemial. Sigh. But I can see, yeah, even in very, very small groups that that's going to be a problem. So, man, if they force you to go back, I hope it's only in classrooms that have windows that you can open. But of course, it's going to be hotter than hell in Texas. in September. Man, that's a tough one. That's really tough.
So I'm doing a little quick math here to try and figure out around what the. So if 20% of the people are infected,
Yeah.
and you go into and you meet 10 random people,
Mm-hmm.
that would be a 0.8 to the 10 chance, right? It's right, 0.8 to the 10. That is a 10% chance. So that means that reload. I'll just turn my camera back on. So that says
Somebody in that has it.
So that means in that place it's more than 20% are infected. Because we're at so what that means is that's only a 90% infection risk. But we've got places in Texas that are at 99%. So like we're at, that means what, 0.7, let me go 0.72. I'm gonna keep
Do the
going.
math, Joe.
I don't know how to inverse these kind of to the power of if it's 30%, 97.2% in risk. So we're looking at basically a third of the people, I guess. What's 0.67? Over a third. If a third of the people are infected and you meet 10, a 98.2% chance. 98.2% chance you're going to meet somebody infected.
That's high.
So like in that, in
Assuming
Texas,
that's a random distribution of people.
Yeah,
Because, of course,
exactly.
these aren't. They're never completely random distributions.
Yeah.
We tend to hang out with the same groups of people.
But still, in these places, 99%. That's bad.
a lot of it around.
Bad news. 83%. That's not good. With 10 people, 80. Like we talk about role playing games and stuff. I've played enough games that like I wouldn't want to do it if it was a 5% chance.
Getting a 1 and a D20, that happens a few times in any given round of D&D.
Constantly. It can happen multiple times in a row sometimes.
2, 3, 4 1s. Sorry, you're dead.
Yeah.
Sorry, critical hit. Sorry, you were pulling your sword out of its scabbard and you accidentally cut your arm off.
Save versus death, but it'll take you several weeks of dying before it happens. Start
rolling a new character.
Yeah. Brutal. All right, I'll close that. But I think that's really good. Anyway, so sorry, we tried to I wanted this to kind of be positive. But I think that's a good thing to like show to your friends why you're not going to their party. Do you know what I mean? Go, look, here's the numbers for our county. Zoom in. You are having a group of 20 people over. That is a high risk of infection. At what percentage is a party worth it? That's a question. At what percentage are you willing to risk a 10% chance of getting coronavirus to go to a party? Because I'm not.
Yeah. And especially now as we're discovering, like we talked about last week, it's not just binary. It's not just death or clean recovery.
Yeah.
There's lots and lots of people who have chronic symptoms.
Yeah.
And there's no way to predict because a lot of them are young, a lot of them are old. You just don't know what happens when you reach into the coronavirus grab bag and pull out whatever the fates have assigned to you in your journey with the virus.
Oh, Ischemiel has a positive. All right, good. Let's end on that.
You got a penguin story?
Yeah.
All right, let's have a look.
I'll end on that. I'll do the same thing we did before because that was working. Sharing that browser window.
Penguin.
Now that I've gotten smart about it and realized if I hit F11 and full screen the browser, nobody sees all my icons and bookmarks and stuff. So it's just the page.
On a date and looked at their great grandparents.
Yeah. Someday we will return to our former glory as giant carrion eaters. I don't know if they think that's true. Is that T-Rex? I don't know.
I don't know from dinosaurs.
So for a while they thought T-Rex might be a carrion eater.
We miss Torin too, by the way, Ischemiel. We're hoping that he'll go through his long night of the soul and come back.
Haha.
But that remains to be seen. It almost looks like in that photo there, it's trying to pose.
Yes.
Scary pose. Scary pose back at you. Is there a video? Video's always the best part.
Here's a video.
Oh, yeah. Let's have a look at that.
Oh, it doesn't want to full screen it. Hold on, let's try it again. No, I can't full screen it.
All right, I see a little
It's okay,
black and
they're
white
doing-
blobs really running around making some noise.
Oh, there we go.
Hey.
Hold on, I got it.
All right,
Let's start from
Restart. Penguins in museum. Doesn't get old.
Nope.
Week 18. I'm not tired of it yet. Oh, it didn't want to stay full screened? Or
That was
the
it.
whole video?
That was it.
Okay.
It wasn't a very long video.
No. You get the idea. Penguin dates. Izzy and Darwin were visibly excited as they explored the empty museum.
What? Come on. How did I got the last one full screen at some point.
Oh, it's slightly larger.
Well, I can... There. Can you hear their feet going pitter-patter? It's pretty adorable. Oh,
Guys,
penguins.
it's a museum.
Penguins, you can have this planet when we're done. Wow, a penguin gazes up at a painting. This is from back in May at the Kansas City Zoo. I think we talked about this show.
It's really looking at... Oh,
Oh, that beluga wants to eat that penguin.
yeah. Sorry, pal. This magical water is keeping us separated.
Yeah, whatever that hard thing is responsible for me being still alive. Nature is horrible. All right, nifty.
So, final thoughts?
The world... I don't know.
Agree.
The world is still worth living. Have you watched Hamilton yet, Rob?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Watch a lot of reaction videos about Hamilton, of course, as everyone does these days.
So was it...
And watch...
Was that your
Go ahead.
first exposure to Hamilton? Because I seem to remember... So my thing about Hamilton was... I started listening to the soundtrack back when it kind of went viral that first time when the soundtrack came out. And I thought, I'll check it out. Lots of people like it, whatever. And it became my on repeat constantly album for like 6 months. Like and I remember,
Oh, wow.
I'm pretty sure I remembered saying, Rob, you got to listen to Hamilton. And I think you going, yeah, we should do that sometime. And I was like, we should maybe do a listening party. Was this your first time or had you experienced Hamilton before?
Bits of the soundtrack here and there, but that, a lot of it was brand new.
Okay, awesome. And good stuff. You liked it?
Loved it. Only figured out just, I think, within the last week, Hamilton's big opening number. I am not throwing away my shot. I'm not throwing away my shot. And then what does he do at the end of the movie? He throws away his shot and gets killed.
Yeah.
And I was just like, oh.
Yeah. Yeah. All sorts
Lin-Manuel
of...
Miranda, you magnificent bastard. You
It's
mad genius.
Yeah. Yeah. It's such a dork ass play to make too. I love it. It's history nerd play. That's what it is. And it's totally, he read a book about Hamilton and went, I love this character. He recognized what I love is he recognized Hamilton's ability to use his words to win those arguments as being the same skill that a lot of hip hop and rap performers have when they do diss tracks and stuff like that. And he was like, oh, I can tie that together. And the first idea he had was actually the cabinet meeting battle. And he was like, I know that I need to get to there. And then worked from there to get to the show. Yeah.
Well, he had to talk George Washington into taking him as his right-hand man.
That's
and
right.
then he had to talk cabinet into properly supporting George Washington.
Mm-hmm.
And then he's in cabinet, right? And then he has to talk his way into the creation of the central bank. And
And he got the whole way there by right, like when he was a kid, there was a hurricane in his town. And he wrote about that. He wrote a letter to his absentee father. His father had buggered off. And so he wrote a letter about the tribulations of the hurricane, and it got printed in the local newspaper and then picked up in other ones. And then everybody was like, who is this kid? He writes so well. And that's when they gathered all the money together to send him to New York to finish his education. He never did go
His name
back.
was Alexander Hamilton.
He never did go back either.
No.
That was the plan. We'll send him there, and then he'll come back smart. We'll invest in this kid.
He got too smart.
He did. He invented the whole U.S. banking system. I love it. So if you haven't checked out that, I say it's good. Let's see. Another good thing I saw, actually it was last week, I saw it on Saturday, Palm Springs. It's a movie up on Hulu by the Lonely Planet people. And it's a comedy, and it's best seen, I think, blind. If you can watch Palm Springs without knowing much about it, I think you will enjoy it more. Just trust me that it's a really good comedy. That like solid, well worth watching. Some real good twists in it that I don't even want to begin to spoil. Just enjoy it. It's called Palm Springs with what's his name from Lonely Planet guy and Lonely Planet guy. I'm just gonna Google that. Oh God. Is it Lonely Planet or Lonely Island? Sorry. Andy Samberg. I keep calling it Lonely Planet. It's Lonely Island. Andy Samberg from Brooklyn Nine-Nine is the main character in it. It's really good. That was one of the things that... Watched it with a bunch of friends. We've been doing that now a lot, is that we... Sorry, big media. We stream our stuff that we have to share to each other for watch parties, but that's what we do now. They're all stuck at home. And we all watched it together, and just every single person who watched it just really loved it. Yeah, good stuff. How about you, Rob? What's been keeping you? What's lifted your spirits this last week?
Really getting back into something I was took quite a lot of coursework back in college, back in my undergraduate days, which was philosophy of mind.
Okay.
So a lot of the stuff by Daniel Dennett, particularly around the nature of consciousness, and a lot of sort of philosophical writing about that, thought experiments. And that's been a lot of fun. It's nice to kind of jump back into some of these conversations that I was reading, 30 years ago now.
Right, before you became a practicing psychiatrist and nuclear physician who literally studies the brains that are creating what a mind is. Yeah.
That's right, yeah. So now I'm kind of coming at it from the cognitive science and philosophical angle, and I'm pretty sure within a week or two I'm going to have the whole thing figured out.
Okay, yeah, no problem.
Yeah.
So
believe me.
If you can figure out how people's brains become impervious to good information, that would be great, because it's a real problem right now. We might discover
it's a largely irreversible condition.
I think it might be. It might be.
In some cases, seems to be. Yeah.
All right, we tried to be positive, but the world keeps dragging us down. I think that's it for Viral Transmissions number 18.
The Perilous Age.
The Perilous Age. And I really mean it. Americans, please stay safe. You are surrounded by the infected. You never know who's been bitten by a zombie, and none of them are going to be honest about it, because it turns out nobody cares if you become a zombie. It seems. They do. That's the other thing. Tons of Americans care. It's just not quite enough. It's also like many Canadians don't. Like all of these problems that we point out in America, these religious right-wing people, they're up here. They're up here in Canada. We just seems slightly less of them for whatever various disparate reasons. I hope everybody's okay. And as we say every week, please remember to spread the word about this show. Not the virus. Please wash your hands. Please practice social distancing. Please, when you can't practice social distancing, please wear even just a simple cloth mask. You can wrap a scarf around your face. That'll be fine. There's all sorts of options. There's really cool ones out there these days. I should really be up on some site with a Viral Transmissions mask that people could buy. But I don't know. My entire executive function is messed up because of the state of the world, so I apologize for all of that. We'll see y'all later. We'll see y'all next week, Sunday at 7. Thanks, everybody. Bye.
Good night.